Well, friends, that day has pretty much arrived. Media days for the teams have just recently passed, which means the season is very close. What's more, just tomorrow we'll be watching the first preseason game between Philadelphia and New York, so the wait is almost over. And against this backdrop, I decided to prepare a list of the 10 best teams before the start of the 2025 to 2026 season. In this top list, I'll express my subjective, but also slightly objective opinion, trying to rely on facts, the successes of last season, and the team's work in the offseason. So get comfortable, I guarantee it will be interesting. So press the red button, make it gray. For 10th place, I'd like to put the Dallas Mavericks, the reboot after Luka Doncic. Their last season was very turbulent, ending with a 39-43 record, as well as 10th place in the West. The season was marred by several events. First, a shocking mid-season trade that sent Luka Doncic to the Lakers in exchange for Anthony Davis, and then injuries that knocked out, for example, Davis and Kyrie Irving for almost half of this season. So Dallas's problems last year were simply catastrophic. But right now the team is starting to make a comeback. This summer, for example, they managed to get the first pick in the draft lottery and drafted a very promising rookie, Cooper Flagg, and they already have a future. It also became known that Kyrie Irving has already started training and will be ready to return, let's say, by the beginning of the new year. Anthony Davis also doesn't seem to be having any problems for now. Klay Thompson is ready for the new season, and the team has depth. For example, they signed D'Angelo Russell and will use him in place of Kyrie Irving while he is injured. Also, with their core of P.J. Washington, Daniel Gafford, and Derek Lively, I think Dallas has a chance to be a dark horse contender for the title. This is a team you definitely shouldn't write off. The number 9 spot is taken by the Philadelphia 76ers. No one can convince me that a healthy Philadelphia is a top 2, top 3 team in the East, and they will have a huge chance to make it to the finals if everyone stays in good shape for the playoffs. Let's take their trio, for example, Joel Embiid, Paul George, and also Tyrese Maxey. Their last season was plagued by injuries, and Paul George arguably had his worst season ever. And as he himself said, it won't happen again. And he still has the energy, still has the fire, and still has a huge desire to win. So, Philly will limit George on back-to-backs to prevent injury. And I think he will manage to have a healthy season and put up numbers similar to what we saw in the Clippers. A healthy Embiid is a top 5 player in the league. The only question is whether the injuries will affect his game next season, because the injuries he has suffered over the last 2 years could seriously impact his playing form. And again, I think Philly will learn from the past and avoid injuries to Joel and Paul George. In addition, the team has Jeremy Kane, who recently suffered a knee injury and is out for at least another month. But in any case, it's not such a long-term injury, and McCain should be back in good shape. Besides, Philadelphia has a deep roster. With the East weaker, and teams like Milwaukee, Indiana, and Boston falling off, Philly has a great chance for a top spot, letting them coast and enter the playoffs in top condition. My controversial 8th pick is the Los Angeles Lakers, a team many people would rank much higher. But what we saw last season is, let's say, a stigma for this Lakers roster. Let's start with LeBron. He's aging and just gets worse each season. Yes, he can show a great level of play in the regular season, but when it comes to the playoffs, where the games are much more intense, frequent, and also much tighter, LeBron really starts to decline, even in terms of endurance. We last saw this in the 2023 conference finals against Denver, where he just didn't look like himself. And now, 2 years have passed since that moment, and the playoffs are still 9 months away. So it seems to me that LeBron could have really serious problems in the postseason games. Besides, if we take Luka Doncic, who by all accounts has lost an incredible amount of weight, and is in the best shape of his life. I'll tell you one thing. We see this every single offseason. Luka Doncic gets into the best shape of his life, loses a ton of weight, and is fired up for the new season, and then we watch him show up in the playoffs in terrible shape, unable to defend properly, getting tired very quickly, and playing basketball that's inefficient for his incredible level. We saw this team's ceiling in last year's playoffs, when they lost 4-1 to Minnesota, and Minnesota, I remind you, was practically swept by Oklahoma. So imagine how big the gap is now between the Lakers and a championship team. Their offseason moves, trading Dorian Finney-Smith for DeAndre Ayton and Jake LaRavia, I just don't think will help them. Maybe. But I try to look at things realistically. And I don't believe in this team. And I don't believe they'll be able to go deep in the playoffs next year. But still, they deserve their spot at number 8. At number 7, we have the Golden State Warriors. A deserved position, in my opinion. And also in the second round, they had a chance to beat Minnesota if it weren't for Stephen Curry's injury. So what we get is that Golden State is a second-round playoff-level team. But they lost nobody this offseason, except for Looney, who hardly played in the playoffs. Golden State also adds Al Horford, DeAnthony Melton to their roster, re-signs Gary Payton, and may also add Seth Curry to their team. And of course, we are still awaiting the outcome of the Kuminga situation. And, as I said earlier, the Warriors are a second-round team, and they're getting some nice reinforcements, so I think they should only get better. And now they'll have a whole regular season to prepare for the playoffs, unlike what happened last season. For example, when Jimmy Butler joined the team, and the Warriors were already in 11th, 10th place, and they had to try to win every game just to guarantee themselves a spot in the playoffs. So right now, they should be entering the elimination games much more rested, and of course, hoping that no injuries occur. 6th place, Los Angeles Clippers. This team can truly call itself a dark horse contender. Despite Kawhi Leonard playing only 37 games, the Clippers won 50 games last season and were a very formidable team, both defensively and offensively. In the offseason, they went all in and bet on star veterans, making a series of stunning moves. For example, they traded Norman Powell in a deal to acquire John Collins, and then signed free agents Brook Lopez, Bradley Beal, and most notably, brought back Chris Paul, who last played for the team way back in 2017. Theoretically, it's huge. Beal, for example, provides a much-needed third scorer. Collins and Lopez add size and shooting, and Paul brings elite playmaking and leadership. And right now, the Clippers look like a very deep and strong team. But of course, there are problems that could prevent them from winning a title, ranging from injuries to age. It's the same reason as the Golden State Warriors, but I feel the Clippers roster is more talented, which is why they're in my top 6. Kicking it off, Timberwolves. They proved they are contenders by reaching the Western Conference Finals for a second straight year, finishing last season at 49-33. Edwards, Rudy Gobert, Julius Randle, and Naz Reid were a very formidable team. Minnesota's offseason was defined by continuity. They made the tough choice and prioritized their own players by re-signing them. They made no new signings or trades, just extended Naz Reid and Julius Randle for $125 and $100 million. But unfortunately, this forced them to let go of a very elite defender, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. However, the Timberwolves still maintain their identity, cohesion, and also the team chemistry they've been building over the past few seasons. Minnesota has already proven that it can play on the big stages of the playoffs. Anthony Edwards is just entering his prime, and the others shouldn't let them down either. In 4th, the Cleveland Cavaliers, giants of the last regular season. 64 wins, 18 losses. But their season ended with a stunning second-round loss to the Indiana Pacers, for which there is simply no excuse. Their roster was completely exposed and destroyed. And the most frustrating part is that Cleveland has no way to improve, and all they did this offseason was send Isaac Okoro in exchange for Lonzo Ball. This was a deliberate move to address their main weakness in the playoffs: perimeter defense. Well, considering the roster the Cavaliers have right now, they should once again be trying to take first place in the East, as well as trying to make a deep run in these playoffs. After all, they took their lumps in the last postseason, and this year they should be much better. They have an excellent defense, a great offense, a good coach, a bench, literally everything needed to make it to the finals. But for now, fourth place is enough for them. Top 3, the New York Knicks. Another Eastern team. Last season they participated in the conference finals, and they didn't waste any time in the offseason either. For example, adding Jordan Clarkson to their roster. And besides, most importantly, they changed their coach. And now they won't just have a tyrant who will run the starting lineup for 40-plus minutes in the regular season, but they'll have a normal coach who will give bench players a chance. And also all the leaders should be well rested for the playoffs. Under Mike Brown, New York should have a good season. The weak East gives them an easy shot at the top spot and the conference finals. Then we'll see. The number 2 spot for me is taken by the Denver Nuggets. This team really impressed me with their work in the offseason, because if we remember the players they signed, I think Nikola Jokic now has the most suitable roster and the most comfortable team for him to win with. The return of Bruce Brown, the signing of Jonas Valanciunas, Tim Hardaway. This is what the team was missing most. They don't need another star. They need more depth and more snipers to stretch the floor and allow Jokic to play his brand of basketball. Additionally, trading Michael Porter Jr. for Cameron Johnson will also give the team a small boost. Therefore, I believe that Denver right now is one of the most formidable teams in the NBA. And if they were already able to give the champion Oklahoma City a 7-game fight last season, then this year with a strengthened roster, I think they can become even better. Therefore, Nikola Jokic's chances for a second championship title increase significantly. And first place, the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think it's obvious here. The NBA champions, who took out the best in their path, and on top of that, didn't lose anyone in the offseason, and considering they have a young core, they should get even better. The trio, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, J-Dub, and Chet Holmgren, building on a very deep playoff run last season and gaining a huge amount of experience, they should become even more reliable leaders. Therefore, I think that Oklahoma is again the team that will be in first place before the start of the regular season. They have everything, and they proved it to us last year. Their main threat last season were teams with a lot of championship experience. For example, we saw how they struggled against Denver, or how they would have had a very tough time playing against teams like the Warriors, Lakers, or Clippers. But now Oklahoma has acquired that experience themselves. They became NBA champions, and that says a lot. So for me, the Thunder are still the best team in the NBA, and we'll see if they can prove it to us. In the new 2025 to 2026 season, which starts in less than a month. So stay tuned, subscribe, hit the like button. Thanks a lot for watching and bye.